it is meant to be a keynote interaction. Mr. Kundra requested that I would rather like to interact with the people and me than giving a monologue. I think so. That's a better position to be in such forum. Mr. Kundra, before we begin, I would just like to highlight that 2016, when we did the first edition of ET Auto EV Conclave, the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi, Mr. Manish Sisodia, was here, and he spoke about the robust EV ecosystem that he is going to develop around Delhi, and we have seen that there has been tremendous progress around it. So just want to understand how much of Delhi is already considered one of the best city in terms of electric mobility. So can you give us some bit of highlight of the future, how it is further going to get better?
Thank you. At the outset, let's get some facts. First of all, Delhi's EV policy has been just 2 years old, of which, let's say, 1 year was gone in COVID. However, I mean, if you look at the data points, it's some very interesting data points. 2022, 10% of all vehicles sold were electric in Delhi, number one. Number two, the electric vehicle sales have already surpassed CNG sales, which is another interesting data point. Number three, if you look at the three-wheeler goods segment especially, last year 60% of vehicles sold in this space were electric. So, there's a lot, and two-wheelers, of course, 46% of all two-wheelers sold were electric in Delhi. So there's a huge uptake, and I think it's because of the fact that it's the entire ecosystem which inspires confidence. We have digital interfaces for rolling out purchase incentives. So there are defined SLAs that anybody buys a vehicle within a week, he'll get the subsidy. Second is the charging infrastructure that is kind of also expanding very fast. So as we talk, we've got 3,500 charging points in Delhi, and we have in public domain a charging action plan which targets 18,000 charging points by 2025, and we have a very clear, decentralized way of establishing these charging points. Now, going ahead, I think our focus is firstly public transport. So by 2025, we are targeting 80% of Delhi's bus fleet will be electric. Number two, our goal is to target passenger service vehicles, which means cabs and three-wheelers. Other countries, for example, if I look at Shenzhen, they had this, that's the way they kind of went, buses and cabs and all of that. That's low-hanging fruit. The third segment is aggregators. A lot of these digital intermediaries, whether they are food delivery companies, whether they are e-commerce companies, etc., they should electrify their fleets. And then, of course, the personal vehicle segment, which is an important component in the whole thing.
Indeed, Delhi policy is 2-year-old, but I was just talking about the vision that he laid out in 2016. Mr. Kundra, I just want to understand, you had rolled out multiple, micro policies also for electric mobility, one of them being electric three-wheelers for women drivers. I looked at the data, the number that we wanted to achieve, we could not get that much. What was the reason?
See, I think in this space, the number of women drivers who are willing to come out and drive an electric auto rickshaw, it's about mindset and changing that mindset. And, we are partnering with certain foundations to train, motivate women drivers, not just in the three-wheeler segment. In fact, Delhi perhaps is the first city in the country where we have now women bus drivers. Already, as we are talking, we have about 40-odd women bus drivers in DTC, and in the next month or so, that number will go up to 100. In fact, in the electric bus tender, which was recently awarded for 1,500 buses, we have a condition that 20% of the drivers should be women. So I think such regulatory measures and some bit of encouragement will probably motivate women to kind of.
Certainly, indeed, that's a great policy. I just want to understand, Mr. Kundra, I spoke to a couple of foreign electric bus maker. They often, not only about Delhi government, but wherever they go, they say that what the government looks for in a tender is that who is providing the lowest rate in terms of, per kilometer. Is that good enough parameter? Should not the quality and comfort and other aspect of the vehicle construction be also considered? I know that 46 rupees or 49 rupees per kilometer, that's what the rate you are offering right now. Beyond that, the little focus, is that true?
See, I mean, Indian bus manufacturers are no less than any international bus manufacturers. Frankly, today as we are talking, there are larger number of OEMs in the bus space, perhaps, than there are in the car space. You have Tata, you have Ashok Leyland, you have JBM, you have PMI, and you have Olectra, and I think a couple of more OEMs who are making buses in India. So while, I mean, it's not to say that, foreign players, that's a certain segment, the luxury segment, which may be for interstate movement, the buses, people require a certain degree of comfort. It's not that they're uncomfortable buses, first of all, let me also clarify. The buses which are being inducted by Tata Motors or any of these, they are absolutely top of the line. So, I mean, and there's no discrimination. So, if all things are equal, obviously they will go by the cost parameter, which is a key consideration in public procurement.
We have seen, like, even I'm in Delhi, I don't dare leaving my car behind. But suppose I'm in London, I don't bother. I walk, I take the tube, I take the bus, I roam around the city without my car very comfortably. Delhi has progressed a lot. We talked about Delhi becoming a smartest city. What is the hint? Why do people still come out on the roads with their private cars, or they are not still adopting to the public transportation? Because that is very important. The congestion is taking toll on the people here.
Yeah, it's a very valid point. I think let's first acknowledge that Delhi Metro, for example, has been able to take off quite a load from the roads, and roughly 3.5 million people ride on it every day. And bus, we have about 3 million, but frankly, as you rightly said, there are completely different segments of people who are riding a bus and riding the metro. You have rightly said that when you go to London, you'll hop onto the red bus, but doing the same in Delhi is considered infra-dig for whatever reasons. But I think one of the key parameters is, A, the Delhi metro and the Delhi bus system has to be interoperable. Like you have the tube and the London bus, which is interoperable. So now we are, and typically these are functioned in silos. But I think last about 1 year or so, we have had a very intense conversation with Delhi Metro, and we have recently floated a bid for the National Common Mobility Card, which will be the medium for digital ticketing both in the bus and that. But the key thing I think is about last mile connectivity. You go from your home, if you have to go to a metro station or a bus station, you need something which is not your own personal vehicle. After all, what's the point you're going in your car and then parking in a metro station, or there's no space to pass in the bus station anyway. So we have tried out an interesting experiment in Dwarka sub-city, which is like a large space with a decent amount of parking and all that. And we have given electric auto permits to Delhi Metro, who has in turn tied up with Sun Mobility. They have established battery swapping stations all over Dwarka sub-city. And I think with the success of this model, we are going to expand the footprint, and they are going to partner. For example, Mahindra Electric also is going to now partner with the Delhi Metro. I have also requested Mr. Rajiv Bajaj to kind of, when their electric auto comes, that they should also kind of come into the same model. So aggregator, which is geofencing the auto rickshaw in a certain geography, and then providing connectivity to the metro stations, I think that's a good way to go.
Agree. And beyond this, I think there is a environmental challenge also. People may not like the weather condition of Delhi, may not be as good as probably London. The pollution levels are very high here. People don't you find it comfortable to walk because it's very dusty and all. There are some these reasons are also there. That is probably one of the hindrances. But on the top of it, whenever I speak to some of my friends, the people must be here from Delhi also. Anyone from Delhi who can raise your hand and tell you why do you think you cannot leave your car behind and you will hop onto a bus or metro? Yes.
Rightly said by you people right now, the weather conditions, the dust, pollution level, last mile connectivity, but I appreciate the way you explained about the Dwarka subsidy. So it is there already in many other cities like London, example you were giving, which I have seen myself. Yeah, I agree with you that if you give a very comfortable and last mile connectivity to the point, people don't have to walk, just take some mode of transport, keep changing and then reach to the final destination.
Thank you. We'll come to the question and conversation later. But Mr. Kundra, one more question. When you finalize a tender for buses and public transport, what are the 3-4 things that you consider on priority that these 3-4 qualities should be there in your?
See, so far the bids which have come out follows a standard template which was frozen by Government of India largely, which is the gross cost contract model. We have followed that for buses to be operated by STUs, which means that Delhi Transport Corporation in our case. But now we are going to come out with an interesting tender, which is for a premium bus service, in which we are saying that against the DTC permit, you operate electric buses in the NCR region. An aggregator will be able to deploy buses. And the goal being that people who are commuting every day from Noida, Ghaziabad, Faridabad, Gurgaon, all these, even Sonipat, they should have an alternate to their personal vehicle, which is comfortable, which seats are assured, which picks them up from the their doorstep and bring them to wherever they want to in a predictable fashion. So there is a willingness to pay for such a service, but I think in absence of a service of this nature, it has so far not, but I think in the next month or two, we'll have a bid around that, yes.
Are you satisfied with the way electric mobility is shaping up in Delhi and other part of the country? And how do you see this can be better, and what are the challenges you are facing, and how are you trying to resolve those challenges?
I think as I mentioned, CNG has been around in Delhi for 3 decades, and it has taken such a long time for people to convert to CNG, but the adoption of electric is much faster. For a simple reason that this is plug and play. In case of CNG, you need a network of pumps and all of that, and that takes time. So I think net, we are on the right track, and hopefully by 2024, 25% of new vehicles sold in Delhi should be electric. But, I think going beyond a certain percentage, we need to have the right communication strategy. A very targeted communication strategy. And I was, in fact, in the morning just discussing with Suman Mishra, who's there, that, companies, electric or OEMs, tend to kind of have a very generic campaign which they spend crores in organizations such as yours. And
Not true.
And for advertising. And whether that is able to actually switch mindsets, I don't know. So we need curated campaigns on digital medium, which can, through creative partnerships with, let us say, WhatsApp and the state government and the OEMs. So if you're talking about 4-wheelers, so my position would be that you have to make the right pitch. It's like a Harley Davidson club. It's like a premium segment you're talking about. When you're talking about 2-wheelers, the communication is, it is affecting your wallet, right? And it has to be very direct, that communication has to be curated. And we are happy to partner with OEMs to make these targeted pitches. We have the database. We know where to send and who to send these messages. And I think it can be a very interesting combination. But there are a lot of fence sitters who have a lot of anxiety, range hai nahi hai, charging infrastructure hai nahi hai, and so on and so forth. So I think this myth busting can happen only through a very targeted campaign.
Agree. This point is being raised since yesterday, that the direct and pointed communication will play an important role in faster adoption of electric mobility. We hear a lot about the supply constraint from the vehicle manufacturers also. Sitting here, there are many electric vehicle manufacturers that we have in this hall. What would be your request or question to them?
Yeah, so, I will just give an example. So, the chip issue which kind of came in between, which disrupted the supply chain, impacted supply. So people book an electric, it impacted the whole auto industry, but within that, I think then the electric segment got hit slightly more. And then there were delays in deliveries and all of that. So I think if we are able to give predictability and have our, supply lines which are efficient, and people are able to, if they have booked something, they should be able to get it in a reasonable amount of time. Unfortunately, for example, I'll give an example of electric auto rickshaws. With great enthusiasm, we kind of released permits, about 4,000 plus for electric auto rickshaws. But then, there were two OEMs and one of them had huge issues. So bookings they took and then they didn't get the orders. And then these are people who are at the lowest end of the spectrum, for whom affordability is about livelihoods. And if they don't get their vehicle in time, then they get disillusioned that probably the product is not ready or something. All kinds of questions then start coming. So we need to get more efficiencies and, as I said, more targeted outreach to the right segments.
Thank you, Mr. Kundra. So we are running out of time, but still we'll take one or two questions from the audience. Okay. From there, mic over there, please.
Yeah, hi, sir.
Provide the mic there.
Hi, sir. I'm Saurabh from MT Mobility. Since the IoT is dominating a lot of mobility sector, do you think that the awareness during the consumers, like a journey mapping, which I personally feel is a big risk for me to adopt a government transportation, because I don't know if I want to travel from A to B location, what time, what mode of transportation I will get, what sort of an economy I will earn, or what sort of a savings I can make it. So if some sort of knowledge is being shared with the consumer through government portals, may help the user to define their journey in a better way.
Yeah, so now we have recently launched a mobile app called One Delhi, and it is digesting the GPS feed of the entire bus fleet of Delhi, and it gives the expected time of arrival of the bus and and all of that. Now, it is based on a certain algorithm, which I will not say it is a perfect one, but it is doing reasonably well. We have to simply expand, we have to ourselves also expand our communication to our bus users to kind of, download these more and use them more for, digital tracking, as you said, plus ticketing.
Good morning. I'm Pratima Rao from Tata Steel. So my question is, while you talked about a lot of infrastructure development that as a government Delhi is doing to increase the charging ecosystem. So both in two-wheelers and four-wheelers, we see that OEMs are giving their own charging setup to the customers, and they are enabling them to fix it in their homes or wherever they want to charge it. So when it comes to public charging, kindly throw some light on the standardization of charging. What are the challenges and where are we going towards it?
Yeah, so I mentioned in the beginning that we have a plan for, setting up 18,000 public/semi-public charging points. Now, the way to go about it is we have two kinds of approaches. One is that public land parcel, we floated a bid. Okay, so we bundled the public land parcels, floated a bid and said, what is the selling price to the customer which you are offering, and the lowest selling price whosoever gives, which can be a mix of fast and slow and battery swapping. And that's how we awarded these contracts. And typically, you know, in some of them, in fact, the bids were lower than the price of electricity, because a lot of these fleet owners kind of ended up getting the bid. But the second model is that there's a Ministry of Power circular which says that any PSU or a public entity can kind of install chargers, and 1 rupee per unit sold has to be given to the landowning agency, which in this case would be either PWD or Municipal Corporation of Delhi or NDMC and so on. So we have a bunch of PSUs who are currently, who have at the back end tie-ups with, charging companies like the oil marketing companies, for example, then the discoms, for example, then CESL is another, and so on. And now, I think in the coming month or so, our own transport department has a corporation which we will kind of take the lead in impaneling charge point operators. We'll lower the entry barriers, and being a Delhi government entity, we'll be able to get those clearances much faster. So hopefully that will kind of, you'll see a rapid expansion of scale in the coming months as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kundra, for being so candid and insightful. We know all about now Delhi government, how they are planning to fast the adoption of electric vehicle. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here today.